All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming today. Thank you, for showing up and spending a little bit of time with me. There's a lot of stuff you could be doing. There are a lot of places you can be. But, I really appreciate folks who show up here for the live sessions. Even if you're watching this in replay the next week, the next month down the road, it's just great to, it's just great to have you here today. Of course, I'm Big Cheds. I try to be as active as I can on YouTube, and that's YouTube at Cheds Trading. Let's see if everything is coming through. Okay, looks pretty good. If you cannot hear me, let me know. I've done full streams with no audio, but I try to be as active as I can. When I do stream here, it's Tuesday or Friday at 10 a.m. I try to stream at least once a week. It's been like holidays and stuff, so I've taken a little bit of time off from streaming, and plus we had been at least. We got some action now, but we had been sideways for, like 40 candles, which is kind of ridiculous. So there wasn't that much to update. If you're looking for more, of course, I'm on Bitcoin Live, where I'm a founding analyst, and I do those reports twice a week. Most of you know me from Twitter, at Big Cheds. I appreciate all your feedback. I may not, see every message. I may not reply to every message. I think that'd be probably kind of insane. And all that. But it's just great to have you folks. Just a couple things real quick. If you're looking for an exchange, I definitely can recommend BingX. I've worked with them for 6 years, and they're fully integrated on TradingView. So you can trade it directly from TradingView. They're a great exchange. I trust them. You can check them out. On my YouTube, I really want to recommend a couple things. You go to playlist. I've done a whole bunch of this year, 2025. Whole bunch of long form interviews with really smart people, and you may enjoy that. Like really, really smart people. Let's take a look. And added newest, I just did Pierre a couple weeks ago, Maine, Chartman, Dan Fibbo. These are really smart people, and my idea with this series, and I'm going to continue with it, is I just want to create value by talking to people who usually are smarter than me, which maybe isn't that hard, but people can add value. They have different perspective, different styles. So check out long form interviews. And then the other playlist I really recommend is the Trading Encyclopedia. It's something new I started in 2025. Over 200 videos already, 263. You can sort by most popular. And it's stuff people ask me about on Twitter, and this just helps me explain it. These are 3-minute videos, like how do I confirm a breakout, and what's a high wave candle, what's a throwback, and how to play a fake out. What's the difference between an EMA, and an SMA. So just look at this, hundreds of videos. So new one every day. Go ahead and check that out. We're going to do Bitcoin, Ethereum. I want to do a whole bunch of alts. We can look at miners. We can look at metals. We can look at kind of whatever you folks want. So just fire away your questions, and I'll try to get to them. What's up, everybody? Carlos. Andrew, Psalm Capital Influence, a bunch of Dan Crap Crypto. As the chat room fills up, I'll try to say hi to you folks. It's great to see you. A bunch of questions already about what are some good altcoins to short. What's my bear market invalidation thesis and high time frame? Yeah, I want to cover that as well. So, what do we think about what is going on here? So, I want to start out by talking about the idea of the two-level filter. Okay, so let me just fix my screens over here. I want to talk about the idea of a two-level filter. So I'm going to go back to a tweet I had recently. Let's see. Here's my XRP call. It didn't work out well. Bad call by Cheds. Okay, so this is important. We can kind of set the table here. Bitcoin's fast approaching a major price pivot at the you guys can hear me okay, right? Looks good. At the 94.5K break, right? So it's fast approaching a major price pivot. So, and I try to be really careful with every question. Yeah, Venarian, ask your questions, man. I try to be careful with every tweet and be precise with every word. So fast approaching means there's strong momentum. Major price pivot. I don't know if I have a video specifically on pivot, but I have a video on support turning into resistance. And that's the idea. Pivot is a big momentum level where you can play it both ways, right? You could short it or you can take a long and a break. But the idea is that level really will give you a strong clue about the momentum, of the chart, right? I forgot to mention I've published 4 books. You can catch them free on my YouTube. They're on Amazon, all that good stuff. So a pivot, right? So it's fast approaching a major pivot. So then there's more words here to parse. Break and hold. So that speaks to the idea of confirmation, right? It's like when you have a level and what defines, like when have you held it? Sometimes it requires a breakout and then a throwback, a retest and a hold there. For some people, it's a certain number, if candle closes above the level. Other people, it's a certain, price distance away from the level. It's confirmed. But whatever that hold is a break and hold. So basically flipping that level, right, would trigger a new long thesis despite the weekly breakdown, okay? So even though, right, the weekly chart has lost the weekly MA50, we'll start out with that. Weekly, here's the orange line, which is an SMA, which means simple moving average, which means equally weighted. And I try to explain everything every stream because I don't know where each of you are in terms of your, skill level or how you approach the market. So SMA 50, right? And we see how the price has lost at 50 here. And it held here, and it tried to hold, didn't happen until the trend's rolling over. And not only that, we had the loss of the 50, we had the failed stair step, right? So we had the nice little breakout, held and should have held, didn't, failed, right? So the trend's big time rolling over. And this is when I started to get super, super, super bearish, saying, look, we're going way lower and as low as 35 to 45K eventually, right? And for me, I still think that's the case, right? But despite that, I can take long trades if the price gives me a structure. So despite the fact that we have a big, weekly, right? Here's the tweet. But despite the fact that we have weekly breakdown, this break and hold would trigger a new long thesis. Why? Well, here's why. Let's go back to the daily chart. So you have a couple things, the 2-level filter. And the 2-level filter, what it does is it marks out a trend. And you have a trend line. And here's the line, and you don't have to get too fussed about how you draw it based on the wick or the body. It's just that the idea is this line is trying to give you an idea of a trend, right? There's a filter around the line, so it just shows you a trend, right? Doesn't matter exactly how you draw it, right? You have just the trend line showing you a trend. So this is called well, I refer to this as a descending supply trend. It's a trend of descending supply. Now, a lot of trading systems use this level, for a trade. They would use a break of that, right? Which is fine. I don't do that. I don't generally like to do that because I have the picture in here somewhere. 2-level filter. I don't want to search it. Like the Twitter search is broken. Weird stuff is showing up. But I have an image that I use sometimes. Talks about the 2-level filter. It essentially shows where the danger of a break on just the horizontal levels, you can do this, right? We all know, the diagonal level. We can just do this. We all know this. We've done it a million times. So that's the first level. The second level filter would be a key horizontal level. And what you want to observe is in classical charting, right? When you have a level, and like not all levels are going to be created equally. And I'm going to get to your question. I just want to riff for a little bit and just get some things out there so I can point back to the beginning of the video so you folks know where I'm coming from. So when you have a level, okay, that's decent. All right, now we have 2 touches. There's time interval, there's price distance, right? So you have the beginnings of a decent level, right? And I'm not talking about a double bottom, but just double temp, right? And it does whatever it does, boom, 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 boom. Now you have, this is a really big level. Look how the price has responded to it, okay? So the more times you test a level, the more important it is. I have a video on that. And the more times you test it, the more likely it's going to break. And the more significant the break of that level would be. So what you have here is the price has formed a pretty strong level where it initially there's some price structure here that you might have thought would have held. The price came down. It kind of knifed right through it. And it turned into resistance, 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 multiple time points. And so we're right back to it. So what you want to do is when you've marked out your supply trend, descending supply trend, you look for a key level, a horizontal level to use to define your risk that would suggest, okay, the trend has really turned around. So as I've been saying at Bitcoin Live, I think probably since beginning of December, maybe middle, is even though I think we're going lower in the medium term and in the long term, if we break 94.5, it would be reasonable to take a long trade because you can manage your risk at holding that level. It's a well-defined level. So if we break 94.5, I'm going to talk. This is a tweet I'm discussing here. I'm trying to explain this tweet in detail. Right? If a break and hold would trigger a new long thesis, despite the weekly breakdown. So despite the fact that we have, this weekly breakdown, a break of 94.5 would allow you to take a long. And what would that do? Well, here's the deal. If the weekly breakdown is not a thing, right? If the price is gonna continue, you want to give yourself a way to check your thesis. You want to give yourself a way to you don't want to say, okay, I think it's going to 45K. I've never done AI bots, gold, silver, to answer your question. Even if you think it's going to 45K, you don't want to sit around and have no long exposure if it goes to say it just bounces from here and goes to 500K. I'm not saying it is, but for example, you don't want to be paralyzed and have no position. You always want to mark out a level where you would adjust your thesis or a level where you would take some type of exposure. And even though I think it's going lower because of the weekly breakdown, you could get along here at 94.5 and it would be reasonable because you have minimally at least a bounce to 100K from there. It's a decent trade. And then from there, you have what is the next most important level on the chart, 107, 107.5. Okay, so 107.5, why is it important? We're going back to the weekly time frame. What I talked about, the fact was we had the loss of the 50 and the failed throwback, right? So what happened was you want a stair step, right? You want a stair step. You want these prior peaks to be resistance as you're advancing. You're consolidating. You understand you need to consolidate. And when the price failed here, that was a big momentum clue. And when you break the top of a range, here's the range here, right? This head and shoulders, inverted head and shoulders. When you break the top of a range, you have a very good chance to get all the way down and test the bottom. That's why everyone's been saying 76K, and that's why it's still pretty likely short term. So 107.5, a break back up above 107.5 would really make the long-term bear thesis, put it in question. A recapture of 107.5 would be a recapture of this important level and a recapture of the SMA 50, which was the weekly breakdown. So level to level, right? To re-summarize here, level to level, even though I think it's going lower. I mean, it makes sense to me it's going lower. I'm not jumping in until I get more confirmation and I get a clean break of 94.5. And 94.5 would allow me to take long exposure, even if I think it's going lower, because there's a good trade in here. First to around, 100K, and then 107.5. And even if we have enough mojo, because a lot of the debate has been, everyone thinks it's going lower, but some people think we're going to tag 100K first, or some people think we're going to tag 107.5. You've seen a million of these charts out here that have this line, right? Where they've all drawn this and then that, right? And sure, okay, well, I can play this. If that's the case, I can play that. And even if it doesn't pause here and it continues, I can still play this and benefit from it, which is why I am watching and waiting this 94.5 level. Now, a lot of people are giving me heat, which is great. I don't mind it. I've been pretty loud bear. But I just, I'm not interested in a long until we break 94.5. And you can see that, enthusiasm was at fever pitch, last couple days because of this mega strong advance. Very strong advance out of a sideways range. And now look at our reaction. We are already an early rejection at the key level. So if this level wasn't big enough already, this further reaction makes it even more important. And if it's going to continue and we're going to get 100K or 107.5, okay? It needs to stair step. It needs to hold support, which is why you want to be shifting back to 90.5. And any kind of bullish thesis really has to check itself if it cannot hold here on a retest of 90K, 90.5K. That would be just devastating, right, for bulls. So bulls really want to watch this level. It's attempting to stair step. We have an early rejection, and you can see why, perhaps, why I've been waiting and why this level I've been talking about. Even for weeks, I've been saying, you know, even in here, I've been saying, especially since early December, I've been saying, give me 94.5 and I'll take a long. And in just, I'm not going to play this chop range in the middle. Like some people got in long here, some people go long here. Great, good for you. My whole strategy is to wait for, like when I play poker, I play a style called tight aggressive, which is where you wait. You wait for a good hand and then you like really jam it and you really kind of push it with a good hand. I just don't want to get chopped out. I don't want to, as I often say, I don't want to put the market makers' kids through college, you know? I don't want to play this chop range. Go ahead, you can play it. Make fun of me for being a bear. That's fine. Like, it's all good. It's reasonable. You could be right. But if I'm wrong, I'm not wrong long because I'm taking exposure at 94.5. And look at the reaction. And there's no, you know, there's no surprise that we reject here because it's a key level, and that's what the two-level filter does. This two-level filter break, all right? Here we go. Some mojo still in chop range. Clear local trigger above, right? 94.5, two-level filter. So I'm just going to wait for that, right? So that gives you some nuance, some understanding, some idea. And to answer the earlier question, and now I'm about to go to the chat room, but there's still a lot of charts I want to look at. To answer the earlier question, what would challenge the high time frame bear thesis? Regain 107.5, okay? Close back up above it. You regain the 50, you regain that major level, and then the bear thesis is in major trouble, kind of the high time frame, okay? Carlos says, great educational explanation. Thank you. And anti-brain rot clips, you too, brother. So let's see what you folks want to talk about. Fire out requests. I can look at miners. We'll look at precious metals, altcoins. I'll kind of scan my list. We can look at short stuff, long stuff. Let's hang out. Let's create some value. Hope everybody's doing well. By the way, for those of you who are watching, if you've been enjoying the Trading Encyclopedia, let me know. If there's any videos you really like, you really don't like, you want to see more of, let me know. Like, for example, like how to use a Fibonacci retracement tool. Here's a 3-minute video, right? Really cool stuff. How to spot accumulation. All right. Let's see. Okay. So, Mr. Ben, do I have any short setups at the moment? Yeah, let's look at that. Let's look at a couple short setups. Look at this is kind of a weaker altcoin list that I generally scroll through. And so for like Doge had a ton of hype, but that was a short setup here on this key momentum. Pivot right around 15.5. Look, we already have an outside bar brewing. Oh, sure, it may come back and retest, 13.5. We shall see. But for this, I think you wanted to retest that level. If you're going to short it, let's see, short setups brewing. Yeah, ENA is pretty weak. So for a short setup, what I'm looking for, I had a short on Filecoin. I got about 50% profit, but then this big wick stopped me out. Actually, this wick stopped me out. When you're shorting something, you want to look for a downtrend. What's a downtrend? Right here. It's the falling MA200 price below it. And I have a video specifically on like, what's an uptrend, what's a downtrend. I have videos on that to kind of help you just get a good sense if you're not sure. You want to have a downtrend, and you want to have a bounce against the trend. And then ideally, your best situation is going to look like this, where you have downtrend, and then you get to like here, where you're bouncing into the underside of lost support. And that's, it's within a downtrend, of course. So that's generally what I'm looking for, right? So let's just look through if there's any good little short setups here right now. Okay, so Filecoin's been, we'll see. SPX. Interesting. Doing a little evening doji star here. Look at these upper wicks. This is a short setup. It's a downtrend. It's a bounce. Here's a bounce. All right. Here's a bounce in a downtrend into overhead, right? Now, you can say even better short would be a bounce right up. Would be a bounce if bounce into 75 cents. That would be probably a good short setup. So I don't know if I'm jumping in here. I would rather see this bounce a little higher and test 75 cents. Then I would personally be looking for a short. Okay. All right. It's a crappy chart with the shooting star. This might be a short setup right here, right? You have a lower to upper Bollinger Band move in a downtrend into resistance. That's a potential short setup. Dot's not great. I'd like to see it a little bit higher before I would short it. Yeah, Litecoin not looking great. None of these look that great. I want to look for really good, like that's kind of dicey. Look at that big shooting star. But I'd want confluence. It's hard to take a trade just based on a single Japanese candlestick. I mean, all Japanese candlesticks are short term, you know, by definition. You want to have confluence. Here you've got this structure here. It's bouncing into, it's reasonable. It's reasonable to be in a short based on that. ADA, you know, I want to see more strength in a bad chart to short. So here we go. So fart coin, right? Like so funny. It's like I have to stop myself and say, did I just say fart coin? Yeah, I just said fart coin. So I would like to play an upthrust thesis, an upthrust short thesis on this. What's an upthrust? You know, of course, I have a video on that, but an upthrust is very simply the opposite of a spring. It's also part of a Wyckoff distribution top, and I have a video on that too. So where you have something like this, you have a level, you break up above it, you failed to hold. This is a deviation, right? You know of it as a deviation, perhaps. So if this drops a little bit lower and fails to hold right around 41 cents, that would trigger a short. And then your stop loss would be just above, maybe like 42.3 or something just up above. So this is setting up, as they say in the south of the U.S., this is fixing, right, for a short setup if it drops a little bit more, because this is another nice way to play a short as an upthrust. You can play an underside test. You can play an upthrust. Okay, hopefully this is useful for you folks. SUI, I want to see SUI higher. Nothing there from Monero, or not Monero, Monad. H-bar, not really much going on there. Yeah, Ondo could be a short. Ondo could be a short here, and you would define your risk at about 45 cents for sure. This is a bounce into underside. This is a pretty nasty downtrend. You could play this level, right? You have a short. If it fails, you play again up here, right? Okay, Apex doesn't look too good. Pepe's interesting. Pepe, this is a stair-step level. So this is where you expect it to hold if the trend is going to continue, right? It's attempted to recapture. Let's clean it up. It's attempted to recapture this level. Hope everybody's doing well, having a good Tuesday. Hope everyone had a great holiday. I'm sorry I didn't already say that. You'd want to see it hold here. Failure to hold this level would be a short. But you've got some decent accumulation here, so I'm not so sure. But this is an important level, so you can play that level if it's lost. Pump fund, yeah, I want to see more there. Useless. I'd probably want to see useless a little bit higher to short it. So that's just kind of scrolling through some of the shorts to give you some ideas, and not just specific names, but, you know, of course, the technique. Okay. Let's see here what else you folks are asking me about. Hey, what's up, Andrew? We didn't have a blow off top there for the bull market. Yeah, that whole line of thinking does nothing for me. That doesn't do anything for me. We didn't have a blow off top. That's, first of all, that's debatable. I don't know what more you want. We went from 15K to like the whole we didn't have a blow off top. I mean, we ran almost 700%. So that doesn't do anything for me. And we didn't have this, so therefore, you know, this one is different and we can't apply bear market, blah, blah. It doesn't do anything for me. Now, to sort of agree with you, there is less volatility over time, slightly less. And my forecast for 35 to 45K is based on a smaller drop peak to trough than past times. So I think had done like 80% than 76 and 71. I only forecasted like a 65 or 67% drop, you know, from the peak, whatever that may be. Let's take a look. So like right up here. Yeah. So look, I'm kind of agreeing with you where I'm saying we might only drop like 67%, right? But the whole we didn't have a blow off top, it's just people saying that. It's just no value in that. You don't get any alpha. There's nothing that's going to get you to think about that. We didn't have a blow off top. My ass, we didn't. I mean, we ran 700%. I don't know what more people want, right? So don't give me that we didn't have a blow off top. We had a mega run. Okay. Andrew, good question though. I'm watching you on 2 devices. That's awesome. Thanks, Andrew. I went from broke to profitable. Venarian says, I went from broke to profitable, and 90% of the reason was I studied your videos and your books, like I studied CMT and Bulkowski books. Thank you. And all the credit to you. Like, great job, man. I'm just reading the comments, folks. Great job, dude. Like, give yourself credit. I don't necessarily want all the credit because I don't want to blame either, but great job, right? Hey, Cheds, big fan of yours from Australia. Appreciate it. Set my alarm for 2 a.m. Wow. Well, I'm glad I didn't delay it. And I'll make sure you get some good sleep tonight. Let's see. Solemn Capital, what's up, bro? Okay, Amazon. Sure, I'll take a look at Amazon. I am here for you folks when I stream. Take a look at stuff. Oh, that's an uptrend. Price above Verizon 200. Interesting. So I'd want to see it hold initially, and I haven't really looked closely at the Amazon chart recently. Okay, your question is OBV, which is on balance volume. Now, if you're wondering what the on balance volume is, it's a momentum indicator. It's an index indicator rather than an oscillator. Like RSI is an oscillator, which means it bounces, it oscillates between upper and lower limit, and RSI is a bounded oscillator. I have videos on RSI and OBV in the encyclopedia, and the OBV basically is like, if you might be familiar with like accumulation distribution. So it just tells you, like, are people buying or selling, and you want it to match the trend. And Psalm says OBV looks like a rocket. Yeah, that's pretty strong. So yeah, a big move here, but it's choppy, and there's no reason you might not kind of come back and test this trend, right, at some point, which is a trend of rising demand. But overall, I like the chart. Absolutely. I would much rather be long than short. Let's see, Venarian. Can you explain the significance of re-entering a parallel channel? Okay. Or a pattern like an ascending triangle after breaking out. Interesting. Well, they're two different questions. Let's pull up Bitcoin again. So what I would say is this: parallel channel. Let's view this as a parallel channel, which is quite reasonable. Okay. So, whatever you want to call this, bear flag in the weekly, bearish consolidation after a breakdown, or even ascending triangle reversal, which is reasonable. Ascending triangle can be a reversal, even though it's usually continuation. So kind of draw it like that. And so let's say your question is, what is the significance of re-entering it after a breakout would be bad? Like, once you break out here, if it breaks, you want to see it hold. Otherwise, this becomes a deviation. It's just a big momentum FU. It's just a big momentum reversal, and that would just be very devastating for the trend, especially given the momentum overhead, aka slope of the SMA 200. Let's see. I'll answer your other question since it's 2 a.m. and you're in Australia. You asked about Zcash. For example, Zcash broke out of a 3-week ascending triangle, and it felt like a reentry at 470 would be pretty critical. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Let's clean this up. Here we go. I mean, if it comes back and it retests this range, you should try to buy it. 450. It's a well-defined trading idea. It should hold here. It's a bullish chart, rising demand trend, potentially retesting that area. So I have not, and gold, silver, bug. I answered that question. I answered those other questions. Let me just see how everybody's doing. What's up, Spicy Meatball? Good to see you, brother. Somebody asked about Gap. What, like the clothing store? I haven't been in one of those in like 15 years. I am old. Gap. Not much here. I mean, it's sideways. Let's go to the weekly. I just, I don't hate the chart. I don't love it though either. It's kind of an unconfirmed uptrend, which essentially means it's an unconfirmed uptrend would be price below a rising MA 200. This is sideways, and I just you can kind of watch here the local range break. It's just not much going on here. There's not much of a trend, not much momentum. All these moving averages are sideways. I kind of dislike charts like this, to be honest, because I like a trend. You can play an uptrend, you can play a downtrend. So I'm not like a huge fan. I don't have a ton of alpha to play in that, and I'd be careful playing that type of chart. XPL was requested, so let's go to XPL, and And I might have just covered it on the other stream, the other playlist. So a little break here. Let's go to the 4 hour because there's not a ton of history, but you see this nice little rounding bottom here. Nice little rounding bottom. With a rounding bottom, remember, it doesn't have to look exactly like this. You could have like this, like that. It's just about generally describing the slowing momentum, the bottoming, and the rising, with the peak is the most important part. The peak of the consolidation range is now broken out. You'd like to see that hold. I think this is still pretty bullish. This is still pretty bullish consolidation post breakout. It hasn't really even tested 17.5 yet. So this looks pretty good to continue, in my view. Let's see. What's up, Todd? Hopefully I answered your question. If not, let me know. Thanks for all the wonderful content. You're welcome, Scout. Thank you. Scout says, I would love to hear your thoughts on TGA. What is that? Is that like the golf? That's PGA. Thungula? All right, sure. Looks like OTC is delayed, right? Was that LSC? That's what, Canadian, right? Is that what that is? Yeah, interesting. Interessante. Tough chart, right? This is not a great chart, to be honest. Look at that, right? All right. So what's important here? Let's go to the weekly chart and try to get a little bit more clarity. Yeah, it's a downtrend for sure. However, we see momentum pivot here. So this is a big battle. This is a very important battle. If you see what happened, you had a similar battle last time and the bulls lost. Here, support. This is principle of polarity, or polarity principle. You see the same thing here. Support, support, resistance, resistance. It's consolidating at resistance. You'd like to see it clear and hold really 450 level, and it's trying to do that. So I would watch very closely here, but let's look. I'm going to go down to daily. I want to look at like the OBV and stuff and just see if there's anything that kind of jumps out. Okay, some accumulation for sure. I mean, it's got a chance to be coming out of the bottom here, but I would still be incredibly cautious, understanding what it's doing on the high time frame, right? It's retesting the underside of lost support. Tau had a great bounce. What's up, Scott Gilbraith? Now it's looking at 300 resistance. Okay. Tau USD. That's crypto. Let's go to Bit Tensor. Yikes. What a trash chart. Okay, let's see. Okay, short setup. Yeah, it's a nice little short setup here. This is a short setup. This is a bounce in a downtrend into lost support. So yeah, I mean, this is a good eye if you're looking for a short. If you're looking for a long, I'd say maybe look somewhere else. Had a great bounce, and now it's looking at 300 resistance. Yeah, so this is a short setup. This is a bounce into cluster of resistance in a downtrend, albeit mild, but also below here, below all this lost support. This is a short setup. If it is going to continue, let's do it this way. If it's going to continue, really want to see it hold here, right around 260. Range, but this is a pretty big move here, a little bit of an overextension above the upper Bollinger Band, and a bounce into resistance, into lower high structure. Let's see here. What about a bunch of requests? This is what I want to see. XPL, we did that. Can you look at XRP and Zcash? I looked at Zcash briefly. It's a decent consolidation. You'd like to see it hold here. Probably will be testing this range shortly. And then you want to see this trend continue. Overall, the chart looks pretty good. Anti-brain rot. What fib target or what chart did you want to target on? Let me know. Let's see. XRP hashtag the standard. I mean, that's a short setup too. Even though I just failed in my short setup, where was it? And I like to point out my bad calls. It helps keep my ego in check. And sometimes I can be arrogant, sometimes meaning all the time. But I definitely try to point out like really bad calls to show you like I can say, because some people like literally can't say like when they get it wrong. I do it all the time. So here's a look at this bad call. And I was looking for a short here around $2, 210, 208. That's like right here. So I was like a bounce into resistance. Here you have it clearing and failing to hold the 225 range. So this is setting up for a short. Right now it's kind of a harami heading towards what would be considered a dark cloud cover. And it doesn't matter too much. I'm just being, academic. Dark cloud cover closed below the midpoint of the prior candle. Just a harami would be just a body inside. So it's kind of heading towards that. The trend isn't great. I like the lower highs. There's a couple like super loud bulls who I've been talking with and having fun with. I don't know. I don't really take them that seriously, just based on their technique and all that. I mean, this is not a great chart, and I just think this is going to go down to about $1.25. So I still think there's a really good chance it heads to about $1.25 and then probably breaks and goes to like $1. But for right now, you had an important bounce and recapture of around 210. It looks to be failing here. If bulls are going to continue, they're really going to want to hold here. So I would just pay close attention to that 210 range. What about XLM? What about XLM, aka Stellar Lumens? What about it, huh? Let's take a look. Hope everybody's chilling. That's a short setup indeed. Nice little short setup. I don't know if you're asking about a long or a short, but this is a really clean little short setup. I kind of wish I'd played it or watched it. Instead, I'm playing a game right now called Eden Crafters, which I played in the past. It's a great game. This is a bounce. This is like a perfect short setup, kind of, where you have a downtrend, or at least a flat trend. It's a bounce into a range peak, support, resistance, resistance, and it's just not a good chart overall, right? I mean, just XLM, not a ton of momentum here. So, and some people play things differently. They're like, I want to buy a bottom. I don't really want to buy bottoms. I want to buy dips and uptrends. I just, I'll short bounces in downtrends or weak trends like this. So be very, very careful. I think you can take a long if it breaks above, right around 26.5. Let's slide this up a little bit. So if it breaks above here, you can take a long. I just wouldn't touch it until then. Let's see. BCH, what's up, Venerian? Yeah, BCH has been super strong. I mean, boom. Latest long trigger, clearing around 630, 640. You want to see that hold. It's a choppy look, so it makes it hard to define your levels based on lower time frame confirmation, like a daily. You might want to switch to maybe like a 3-day chart and kind of, use that to define your confirmation method. Go to the trading encyclopedia. You can kind of understand what I'm talking about. It's actually the top video. How do I confirm a breakdown or a breakout? But generally pretty good. Let's see. Big Stats. What's up, man? Nice to catch you live after a long time. Thanks for teaching me TA. Thank you for being here. I try to continually provide value. It doesn't mean all my calls are great. Like, here's a bad call. I think, like on Bitcoin, I think I know what I'm talking about. There's no question. Let's discuss this here in a second. I'll discuss this tweet. But I really enjoy teaching people. And, I don't know if you may or may not know, I've done CMT1 and I teach professional TA. I'm doing CMT2 now, textbooks over here. And I got an idea while I was studying for CMT2. I said, you know what? I want to make a video library. So I've made this, these 3-minute videos. So teaching you helps me get better. And to make these videos, I've had to research some of these things that I didn't necessarily know, on the back of my hand. Chalk and money flow, stuff like this. So I like to teach stuff is how I get better. So teaching you helps me improve. So you're welcome and thank you is how I would say it. Okay. Question about gap was a question about my thoughts on a short scalp in the 28 to 30 range. Let's take a look at that again. All right. I want to get through all the comments and then I want to look at some other stuff. Let's look at gold and silver actually next. So questions about a scalp short a little bit higher. Yeah, I mean it's into well-defined range peak. So up here, yeah, it's reasonable. You're on the right track, Todd. Okay, let's look at these metals real quick because I know some of you are interested. Look at silver. Look at that reclaim. I thought for sure the top is in. I'm not so sure anymore. This is kind of ridiculous. Beautiful move. Nice reset here. Let's clean it up. Let's go to a 4-hour here. This is a nice little reset here, right? Nice little reset. We got the tightening range. I did call out an expected pause. No, I did call out this peak when I had a tweet where I basically said, lower high. So we got our high. We had our lower high, and then it did our tightening range, and it just broke. And then it broke, right? So you have basically 2 continuation triggers here. On the equilibrium break, which is I have a video in equilibrium, right? Tightening range. And then here. So that's nice. You want to see this continue 77. So you've had a nice consolidation. Then you got clues if you want to continue. Gold, I mean, just bullish. I mean, no question about it. Held nicely on the throwback. I did put out a tweet here saying like it's doing a bullish throwback, and it held. And, you know, it went sideways for a few days, and now it's looking to continue. So those are definitely, metals are definitely super bullish. Let's see. Can I open up the soybean chart? Says Andrew. All right, sure. I mean, I'm not Peter Brandt. He's my colleague, but Mr. Brandt for sure could probably knows soybeans by the back of his hand. The man's a legend. Commodities for sure. He has a great book, by the way. I have it in my library somewhere. It's Diary of a Commodities Trader by you know, my colleague, if you're not familiar, Peter Brandt. He's with me at Bitcoin Live. Here we go. Diary of a Professional Commodities Trader. That's why I thought I haven't mentioned soybeans. Yikes. So what's your question about soybeans? What is your question here? Is this a bottom formation? Where? In soybean? Oh, no, Z-scaler. I'm not even looking at the right thing. Soybeans. Let's go to all. Okay, here we go. Let's go to soybeans cash contract, of course. All right. Well, that's a throwback. Look at this inverted head and shoulders. Finally got a throwback. This is called a morning star. Big body, small body, spinning top. Another big body. Nice little morning star, yeah. Now, maybe it does this. Maybe it does this here, and boom, right? That'd be reasonable. Yeah, that's definitely a bottoming here at a key momentum pivot. Pretty good eye, okay? All right. Good job, Andrew. Todd wants to know NGS in the weekly. What is that? And I do want to talk about Bitcoin some more, of course. NGS, natural gas service. All right, whatever. I'm here for you folks. Natural gas service, that's an uptrend. I'm not sure what else to say. You want to be long. Here's what I wanted to talk about on Bitcoin. And I'll get back to the chat room while you folks prepare any more questions for me. There's a few more. I just want to quickly get back to the... So this is notable, right? So Bitcoin, strongest 4H RSI since October, 125K area. I'm just looking around because I was looking around and I was thinking last night. Let's pull this up. Let's go here. Let's go ahead and just put it on the chart and just see where we were. Okay, we're right there. And I was looking at this and I'm thinking, are we rolling over? And I'm questioning myself because it's like, do I want it to stop here so I can you know, feel good because I didn't get in lower, or do I want it to stop here because I think it's supposed to stop here because it's logical and I want the method to work? And so I'm always checking my bias, but I was looking at it here thinking, okay, it probably would stop here because, you know, it's an advance into a key level and it will probably at least initially stop, if not, and then throwback, right? Retest this level 90.5, which is a minor overhead. But the advance into this level was so strong. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green, very strong advance. And if you go to the 4-hour and you look at the RSI, look how hot it got. It was the highest RSI since the 125K top. And that just showed how strong an advance it took to get to here. Just to get to here, it took this strong a lower time frame momentum. So in my mind, that said, okay, it probably will pause here. It needs to consolidate, right? Because it's also it's like much less likely to just shoot through here because of how much gas it had to extend, how much gas it had to extend, it had to expend, it had to use, how much energy it had to use to go from 87 to 94K. It was quite a bit in such a short period of time. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I gave you folks a video, by the way, on RSI. Now, it's true that the biggest gains do come when the RSI is overbought. And actually overbought is generally a buy signal. Now, if we kind of go in and look and see, did that play out? So let's see. We first really got overbought here, right around 92K. You didn't get much from it. So it's not always a buy signal, but it was just notable that we were that hot short term, and it took that much momentum into this key level. So it was just like, okay, caution. This was just kind of another maybe a little bit careful here type of tweet as we were starting to roll over here 12 hours ago. Fetch. Okay, I'll take a look at Fetch. Sure. I'm happy to do that for you, JVC. Good to see you, man. JVC. Let's go to Fetch. Fet AI. I mean, this is kind of a beleaguered chart. That's a nice bounce. Interesting. 4 hour. Let's go to daily. All right. Now, the chart sucks. Wow, there's a yikes chart. Okay. Now, for me, I'm thinking, yeah, I want this to bounce a little more so I can short it, right? It's just a nasty downtrend. I want to see it a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. I mean, right now it's just in lower highs. It's a downtrend. And here it's a lower to upper Bollinger Band move, and we're starting to fade here too on the 4H, right? Starting to fade a little bit. If it's going to continue off the bottom here in any kind of manner, any kind of form, any kind of way, yeah, you want to see it hold around 26.7. I just like, of all the things you could be taking long exposure in, like, why would you want to take it in this chart, right? So hopefully you're not thinking like, is it a bottom and I like it, I want to go long. You should be thinking, I don't care what it is. It's just 3 letters, FET. It's just a chart. If it bounces higher, I have a nice short setup because I want to trade with the trend, okay? All right, yeah, sorry, I didn't mention Ethereum, Emily. I'm really sorry about that, folks. And yeah, so I've been kind of quiet on Ethereum. I talked a lot about Bitcoin, and we'll do Sol. There's so much to talk about today. So you have essentially a bullish break out of the tightening range. I did put out a tweet about the apex here, and the apex is the decision point of a consolidation range, be it a triangle or a wedge. Both of them have JVC looking for 30 to 32 to short. Yeah, absolutely. I'd say a little bit higher. I'd probably short. I'd wait for it to be a little bit higher. Good call, though. Good call, JVC. So you have the apex is like the decision point of a triangle or a wedge. It basically means it's getting ready to break one of these trends. The descending supply trend or the rising or the advancing demand trend, right? Yeah, we'll talk about hype. We'll talk about Sol. We'll talk about all that. This, even though it's an initial bull break, I mean, there's also serious potential for lower highs here. We're still in lower high structure, which is why, and I've been saying at Bitcoin Live that I just would really wait, again with Bitcoin 94.5 to go long here, I really would wait to see like a 3,400 break. I just want to see it recapture this level before I'm thinking, you know, I have any chance of bouncing to 38, 3,900, 4K. I just don't want to get chopped around here in what is clearly consolidation. All these moving averages are sideways. I want the meat of the move. I want to ride the trend. So we have an initial bull break for sure out of, the tightening range here, but it's not enough for me. It's not enough for, my style, for how I like to play it. So I just think we're waiting for 3,450. I still think Ethereum is going lower. I think it's still going to test here, probably not hold. And I still think it's at 2350, in the next couple of months. And so that's just my base case. And look, I don't know, could be wrong. It's like, I have no problem admitting when I get things wrong. So I'll wait for that to happen. We'll kind of go from there. Let's see. I want to look at Sol. We'll look at Tesla too. Good question. We'll look at MicroStrategy. We'll try to get this all covered. Let's see here. Solana. Yeah, I mean, I just can't fathom. And again, one of these guys I'd been debating, I'm not going to name him, was so bullish on Solana. I'm like, this chart sucks, bro. I mean, look at this weekly trend. Getting ready to roll over, called a 3 Buddha top or a head and shoulders top. It's breaking the neck base or starting to break. And for me to want to be long, I need to see more. I need to see what the price is defined to me as a key level. I need to see that recaptured. I just don't have any. Earlier in my trading career, sure, I had like FOMO more and I had like itching to play. I just don't see wanting to go long until this breaks 145. It can recapture that. I would avoid it. It's likely to. It still is likely to just roll over here. So, I just don't. Still, I'm not impressed with the price action, even with this local break 125. This is like 94.5 in Bitcoin for me. This is just a major level. You see how well the price has defined it as a momentum trigger. Need to see that flipped. Okay. Hype as well, and then we'll do Tesla. We'll do MicroStrategy. Not MicroStrategy, MicroStrategy. So hype, yeah. hasn't really participated that much. In the bounces we've seen. That's interesting. In the bounces we've seen here the last couple days, I still would pretty much, if you're looking to take a long, I would just wait and have it clear what the 31st, $30 area. Similar, and you're kind of noticing, I think, not a vibe. You're noticing a theme from me, a strategy where I want to see key levels recaptured in order to take what would be a counter trade trend. Okay. Let's see. Venarian says, any thoughts on short-term price action to Bitcoin? I spent the first 20 minutes of the video on that, Venarian, and I'll wrap it up at the end. I talked about that, and I'll wrap it up at the end, but I already discussed that. We talked about Ethereum. Let's go through and do a couple more of these like crypto adjacent things, and then I'll riff on Bitcoin, then we'll wrap. And thank you folks for being here. Hope everybody had a great holiday. Let's go to Tesla first. Yeah, I thought it might hold here, and I saw, CBS Cold-Blooded Chiller from, he's like with The Haven, and he works with Pierre, who I just did a video on. He put out a tweet, and he said something like, and I'm not calling him out, I'm just saying it's interesting. He said Tesla at 460 is one of the easiest trades you'll ever see, and I asked him, I was like, he didn't reply, but I was like, do you mean like long or short? I wasn't sure. And because you can play it either way. It's just a key level, right? You see this gap here, and this gap should have held as support, and it didn't. So if he was thinking long, I get it, because it's a throwback. It's a bullish retest. But the fact that it didn't hold is not good. And you should not, if you had bought at 460, you shouldn't still be holding, because this is pushing lower. It's probably going around 410. 420, smoke them if you got them. I'd probably go into this range in the short term. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So you have initially a failed throwback, right? You have a failed throwback on Tesla. So you would have wanted to see it hold here. It's very, you can just define your level based on resistance, should turn into support, and then you do certain things like gap technique. Here's a big gap. I have videos on gaps, right? And they're also called falling window in Japanese candlestick theory. I have videos on all that here in the trading encyclopedia. So it really should have held here, and it didn't. So I'd be cautious until that's recaptured. That will be resistance on any kind of a bounce. I would watch that and be careful. Litecoin is dead. Yes. Moki Beast. Answer your question. I'll look at that in a second. But yeah, Litecoin sucks. Yeah, MicroStrategy. Yikes. Yeah. Wow. That's not good. That is not good. Couldn't even now blow that hammer too. Yeah. Where are we at on MicroStrategy? Yikes. Probably going about $1.25. Keep an eye there. Yeah, this is I wouldn't want to be long in this one. This is a rough looking chart. MicroStrategy looks like garbage. Andrew says, can you make a collaboration with Bob Lucas and Peter Brandt? I've already done it, and albeit a while ago, but I've already interviewed both Bob. I interviewed Bob for the long form interview series, and I already interviewed the esteemed Mr. Peter L. Brandt. So you can see that. You can see I've already had both those interviews for you, okay? And in terms of like you want us to collab, I mean, just go to Bitcoin Live. You can hear from us like all the time. Like you hear, I do twice a week. Peter, I think once or twice a week, and Bob's like 2 or 3 videos a week. Like we're all super active. You know where we stand. What I like is we don't get together and decide what we're all gonna say. Like you get independent analysis. So I don't even know like if Bob and Peter agree with me right now. They may or may not, like, or if I agree with them, right? And vice versa. So, check that out. You can get it all free stuff, YouTube and Bitcoin Live if you're wanting more. I've already done work with them. Somebody asked me about Litecoin, and then I'm gonna wrap it up in Bitcoin. Yeah, it's just nothing here. I mean, it's not like dead, like going to zero. I just don't like. Why would you want to hold $1? Why would you want to have any money in this chart? What is it likely to do? This, like, great, have fun with this. Have fun. I'm not going to play that. There's just nothing here. There's no mojo. Okay, so Bitcoin's got some stuff to talk about. And to reset the table, all right, weekly trend breakdown. What does that mean? Well, weekly trend breakdown loss of the SMA 50. SMA 50 held, kind of like we're looking at like what happened here in 2021. Held, and it failed to hold. what was notable about the 2021 top is we had this bounce and deviation. If you remember, I briefly, for like a day, I got long again because we recaptured 46K. Okay, this is back in the day. Let's go there. Let's go to the daily chart. Let's just illustrate it, and I'll make my point. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so I actually briefly got long here for a couple days because we recaptured. This is back, I sold up here, and I sold more than there. But we briefly reclaimed this level, and then when we failed to hold is when I put out my tweet when I said, we're going to sub 20K, we're going to 12 to 14K, right? This is when, you're at 45, and it turned out to be one of my best calls. And so we lost to 50, and then we had this, bounce into really underside and failed hold. And so a lot of people are kind of watching for something like that. They're watching for this bounce. And so a lot of the debate has been, we're going to do this first, or we're going to do that first, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's fun and it's reasonable to forecast out. That far, it's hard to really have that much certainty. All you can really do is adjust and play level to level. And even though my game plan and my thinking is that we are headed down to here, eventually. It's way lower. There's a lot of pain. It's a long ways to go, but the early signs of the breakdown are there for me. Loss of the MA50, and perhaps equally importantly is the failed throwback, the failed hold here, and the re-entering of this price range, right? Which is the inverted head and shoulders. You understand when you have a throwback, you want to hold, right? You don't want to drop back into the range. It's a big momentum clue. So despite that, okay, despite the fact that 76K seems pretty likely in the near term, right, initially, that'd be the first test, right, 76K, roughly 74, 76K. I'm watching momentum here. I'm watching levels. And when the price defines a level for me, like it does here, I'm willing to pay attention. So what I use is a 2-level filter. It's classical charting technique. And here we go. Nope. Here we go here. 2-level filter, right? 2-level filter, descending supply trend, lower high. And so you have the descending supply trend and you have the lower high structure. So if it can break 94.5, I'm happy to take a long. And a lot of people got long earlier. I tend to avoid this chop range. So, and I'm okay with, like, let's say it goes to 107, okay? I'm okay with getting long at 94 versus 90 or 89. I just want to avoid getting chopped around. I want to avoid taking, like bad exposure trades, right? So you can see there's been a pretty strong price response and another rejection at 94.5. And it makes sense because that's a well-defined level and we have really short-term overextension, upper Bollinger Band, breach in an overall kind of damaged trend. So if this wasn't already an overhead level that you can use, it is even more now given this most recent rejection. Therefore, if it breaks and clears 94.5, you want to take a long, okay? Even though there's the weekly breakdown, right? Because we're going to go level to level. If it breaks, we're going to watch price interaction at the underside around 99K, 100K. And then from there is going to be the ultimate test. If we get it, 107.5. A recapture of 107.5 would signify recapturing the peak of this range. So the peak of that range and the support from this range, right? And that would be super important. So level. It's actually kind of clear. To me, it's actually kind of clear. And the only thing is when, if and when we get in, we get these interactions, but where to watch just seems really pretty clear to me. So the moment, even though this doesn't look clear, there's kind of squiggles. We'll draw it like this. 107.5 above, 100K, key momentum pivot. And here locally, 2-level filter, 94.5. So if it's already bottoming and it's going to whatever, either 99K, 107K, or a new high, bulls need to hold in the throwback, which should be right around 90.5K. Retest if it gets there. And bulls really need to check their thesis if it fails to hold here. Okay. Psalm Capital says, I remember your sub 20K call and I started dollar cost averaging at 18K after ATX. FTX, the main reason I'm here today is because of you. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. So, folks, while you're here, check out the long form interviews series. A lot of great stuff on my YouTube. Check out the Trading Encyclopedia. These are 3-minute videos. Really anything you'd ever want to look up, in terms of like a indicator or anything to do with technical analysis. I want to have a video for you to kind of understand it and make it easier. I'm taking, trying to take the complicated and making it a little bit easier for you. I'm, of course, on Twitter at Big Cheds. If you are looking for somewhere to trade, check out BingX. They're a really great exchange, and I've worked with them for 6 years. And they're integrated, fully integrated with TradingView. So I would check that out if that's something you're looking for. Bitcoin Live, I do a twice a week full market report every Wednesday and Sunday night. And even like when I'm overseas or like on a vacation, I haven't skipped in 7 years. If you want to know what that's all about, let's see. Okay, this is the wrong. Here we go. If you want to see what it's all about, my video from like December, late December's in here. So it's just a few weeks ago. So it's on the public blog. If you go to public blog. So the admin of Bitcoin Live will declassify my private reports like every few months. So there's a pretty recent one if you want to see like what I do there, and I'm proud of it. But you don't have to do any of that. You can enjoy the free content here on Twitter. I have published 4 books. You see them here. These books are all available on Amazon, and they're all free on my YouTube channel in the various playlists. Trading Quotes has its own playlist. I need to record another video, my cancer memoir, and Trading Journal, my latest book, and Trading Wisdom. That's all in the Trading Encyclopedia. So check all that stuff out. It's Tuesday. Hope everybody's having an awesome week, an awesome start to the year. If I missed your question, I apologize. I'll try next time. We're coming upon an hour. This is a long stream for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to dance. We're going to finish up with the Church of 8 Wheels, and we'll go from there, and hopefully we'll all have a great day. So, folks, thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for being with me, and let's do this. Audio looks good. Here we go.